Hello everybody, it's Russell Matthews here and I'm back with another Canadian benefit update for you. And I have to say, I'm a little bit worried for you if you've ever collected CERB, CRB, or any of the Canadian benefits. Yeah, I'm pretty worried. So many Canadians don't know how much money the CRA can claw back down the road of the money that you've applied for. And I'm not talking about people who fraudulently applied or weren't eligible. I'm talking about you, the law-abiding Canadian who applied with all the rules followed and to a T. Even you will have to pay back more money than you probably expect. So today we're going to cover exactly how you can calculate how much you're going to have to pay back, when, and how to prepare for this. But before we do, if you're new to the channel, hey, how's it going? It's nice to meet you. My name's Russell and I'm constantly posting videos on this channel all about Canadians and their money. The overall goal of the channel is to bring you guys some solid information that you can use to set yourself up to live a more healthy and wealthy and stable financial future. If that sounds like something you're interested in, or you just want to stay up to date with all the changing news and information about these new Canadian benefits, then make sure to hit the subscribe button and the notification bell. I'm bringing new videos every day, so whenever there's a change to anything that could affect you, you're going to find it out here first. And while you're at it, hit that like button and turn it blue, because just one click of that button could send this video to hundreds of people that could seriously need the information and benefit from it. Thank you for doing that, and without further ado, let's find out just how much money you could be paying back to the CRA soon. At this point, most people know that if you applied and you weren't actually eligible, you're going to be required to pay that money back. That's a no-brainer. But today, we're covering the two ways that even if you applied 100% above board, you qualified and everything was good, we're covering the two ways that you could still have to pay back some money. The first reason that we're going to cover is if you made over the $38,000 cap for CRB. We're not going to spend a lot of time on this because I have another video that does a deep dive into exactly how to calculate this amount for you. And so if you want to check that out, it should be linked here or down in the description. But as a quick recap, if you make over $38,000 this year in 2020, including your CERB money, you could be required to pay back 50% of every dollar you make above the cap. Again, if that doesn't make total sense, check out that video because you'll understand everything perfectly after watching it. But the area that I haven't covered is how much you're going to have to pay in tax on this money. This applies to you whether you applied for the CERB, the CRB, or both. If you're getting the CRB right now, you're probably thinking, Russell, come on, I know they're holding my tax back. That's why I'm not getting $2,000 and I'm only getting $1,800 a month. My tax is dealt with. And I could see why you would think that, but sorry, you're wrong. Even though the CRB holds back some money for tax, you could have to pay more on top of that depending on how much money that you make in your tax bracket. Even though they're withholding some tax, you are likely going to have to pay more on top of that when it comes time for income taxes. On top of that, the CERB wasn't taxed at all, so you're going to have to pay income tax on all of that. Now, the subject of calculating how much you're going to have to pay back on these benefits in terms of taxes is going to be different for every single person. There are a ton of variables that will affect how much you'll pay. How much money you make in the year will affect which tax bracket you're in. Which province or territory you live in will also affect how much you pay. And that's not even mentioning how people will have certain tax deductions depending on their line of work, among other things. But today, I'm going to do my best to show you how you can calculate this very specific individual number for yourself so that you can be prepared and so that you're not falling into a financial hole for the next coming years. Like I said at the beginning of the video, it's my biggest worry that Canadians won't be prepared for this tax bill and that they'll have to pay interest on it and it'll go down and down and down and you'll spiral into a hole of financial uncertainty. Most Canadians are living pretty close to the edge when it comes to their finances, so one little flick from something like a tax bill that's a little bit too high could set off a chain of dominoes that leaves you in a pretty crummy financial position. So let's try to avoid that by figuring out how we can know exactly what to expect when we have to pay this bill. First of all, I want to give a shout out to my buddy Nick from Nick's Taxes, who also has a YouTube channel covering similar content. He's a great guy who posts videos about how to calculate these sort of things too. One of his videos informed me about this great tax calculator, which is what we're going to use today. Let's take a look at it and make sure you have a browser tab open just so you can follow along. So first things first, let's go find that tax calculator. All right, it's the first one here listed. We can click here. It'll take us to this first screen, but what we're looking for is the personal tax calculator right here for 2020. I'm gonna give that a click. And here's what we're using. It's a super helpful calculator that gives you the different tax rates for provinces, how much you're going to have to pay, after-tax income, all this good stuff, and you're able to actually enter how much your income is in order for them to give you these details. And you'll see that the only thing we have to input is our taxable income right here, and we just click calculate, and there you go, it'll give you your answer. But unfortunately, it's more than a little bit confusing figuring out what that taxable income really is. Is it just the income you make at your job, or do you have to include certain benefits? The answer is yes, you have to include the benefits that you receive in this number. If you want to find out how much you're going to have to pay come 2020 tax time, you're going to put all of your income, including these benefits, all together before we calculate what your tax rate is. That means you're going to take whatever income you made from your employment or self-employment in 2020. You're going to add whatever CERB you got, so anything that you received from the CERB program. And also, contrary to popular belief, you want to take all the money you received from CRB and include that in your taxable income in this case. But there's an interesting way that you have to calculate how much you're putting in here for your CRB or CRSB or CRCB amounts. As you probably know, there's $100 per 2-week period that is withheld in order to account for some taxes. But when you're adding it all together to make the total to come up with how much you're going to have to pay in tax, you actually have to include the $100 that you didn't get for that 2-week period. Confusing, right? But it has to do with the way that tax withholds are dealt with by the CRA. When you come up with your gross taxable income, you have to include everything you received, and you have to include everything that you didn't receive but was withheld at the source. We have to come up with this big lump sum number, put it into the calculator, find out how much we are going to need to pay, then we can subtract anything that was originally withheld at the source. If that doesn't make sense yet, don't worry. I'm going to walk you through exactly how this works and how you can use the calculator to find out how much you're going to pay. First thing we have to do is find out what that gross taxable income is. For this example, I'm going to assume that you received all of the CERB and you made the maximum amount that you can make with your income before going over the CRB cap. I'm also going to assume that you applied for all 6 2-week periods that you can apply for in 2020 when it comes to the CRB. The maximum you could have received from the CERB is $14,000. That means the maximum income you could have made without going over the CRB cap was $24,000. That brings us right to the $38,000 cap. Now, for this calculation, we need to include all of the money that we're going to get in 2020 that we get from the CRB. It seems like there are 6 potential periods that you can apply for with the CRB that are inside 2020, so we're going to assume that you applied for all of them. So that's $1,000 per 2-week period that you're going to include in this number. Remember, we're not counting the $100 that was withheld. We're calculating this like we received that, and we're going to take that off later. I know it's silly the way they calculate these things, but this is how you do it. The reason we have to include these $100 that we didn't even see in our bank accounts is because this will contribute to our gross income, which in turn contributes to which tax rate we have to pay. So in order for this calculation to be 100% accurate, we need to throw that in there so that we're actually looking at the correct rate for the amount of income we made. I'm hoping this makes some sense. It's not the most simple or intuitive system that the CRA has set up here, but this is the way it works, so this is what we've got to deal with. So 6 periods at $1,000 a period, that's $6,000 that you could potentially collect before the end of 2020. When we add this to how much you got from CERB and how much you got from your income, this brings us to a total of $44,000. So that's what we're going to use for our taxable income on this calculator. So the number we came up with was $44,000. I'm going to plug that in here and then click calculate. You'll see instantly it comes up with all these numbers, but what do they mean? You'll see that they have a different number for every single province. This accounts for the fact that there's different tax rates for different provinces. You're going to want to scroll down to the one that reflects where you live. So for me, I live in Ontario, about a half hour east of Toronto, so I'm going to look here at this Ontario line of the chart. Based on the $44,000 total, what I have to pay this year come income tax time is going to be around $6,293. But you'll remember that we didn't take away the tax that was withheld by the CRA initially. We just added that into the lump sum. Now, after we've calculated this and found out how much we owe, we can subtract that $100 per period again to let us know what we actually have to pay. So our number we came to was $6,293, so we're going to subtract $600 of that because there were 6 periods in which they withheld $100 of tax. Remember, those were the only 6 periods that we could apply for and get from the CRB in 2020. So that brings us to the true amount we owe come tax time, which is $5,693. Now, of course, your situation isn't going to be to a T exactly what this was. Remember, the assumptions we made were that you got all of CERB, you got all of CRB, and you made the maximum income you could without having to pay back any of that CRB. You'll have to play around with the numbers to calculate that first number that we plugged into the calculator in order to find out exactly what you're going to owe around April 30th in 2021. And I know this is a hassle for you to do, but I really recommend you do it. It's so easy for Canadians to just spend all of the money that was given to them from the benefits, but if you do this and you don't have enough money to pay back the increased tax bill come next tax time, you could end up paying interest to the government on this money that you owe. As I said at the beginning of the video, this can cause a snowball effect that takes you to a pretty poor place financially. Even though you receive these benefits, you could be worse off afterwards. And that's my number one concern for Canadians who got the CRB or the CERB or any benefit for that matter. It's so important that you take these steps to make sure you're not going to be in an even worse position come tax time. So take the time to come up with these numbers, rewind the video and go back through it and follow along in putting exactly how much you made and exactly how much you received so that you can find your accurate number and plan for the future. I know I wouldn't want an unexpected $6,000 tax bill. So I really hope you take these steps, but it leaves me curious. What do you guys think about all this? Have they overcomplicated the system so much so that Canadians can't understand what's going on with their money? Let me know down in the comments. Is this simple enough or is it way too complicated? I want to know what you have to say. And while you're down there, hit the like button because just clicking that button could warn so many more Canadians that they could expect to pay this kind of money come tax time without even knowing it. So I'm sure they'd appreciate the information and I certainly would appreciate you spreading the video to them. And of course, if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell. I'm coming out with videos like this that are informative to Canadians like you every single day. So if you want to follow along and stay up to date, make sure you hit those buttons. And with all of that said, I want to say thank you for watching this video. I really hope it's helped you out at least a little bit, and I'll see you next time.